Hey everyone, welcome to Bucs UK TV. It's episode 138, and Phil, Gareth, and Tim are here with me this week. Gareth, this is probably the weirdest podcast start we've ever had to do. What was that game all about?
Well, it's nice to do my first one after a big victory where the Bucks have been setting records throughout the game. We need to forget the second quarter, I think, but it was an all round a great performance. Apart from that second quarter, it's going to go down in history for several reasons.
It does feel like we just need to we always used to moan that the Bucs were slow starters out the gate, and actually the first quarter was fantastic, and then they went to sleep afterwards. Phil, I mean, how much credit do we give the Bucs for that versus how much of a rap do we give the Saints? Do we know how good we are yet?
I think it's a great performance, right? I mean, clearly we started fast, which was brilliant. I know they sort of saying on mic that New Orleans might be a little bit slow out the gate, given the sort of like the amount of snaps. I think they had about 80 defensive snaps the week before. But I don't think you can take the credit away from Baker Mayfield and the offense, the way they started. I love the play calling, the amount of pre-snap motion there was. I think it's something we've really upped under Liam Cohen this year, and it just enables Baker to read the defense so much more. It gives you so much better opportunities rather than just sort of static the whole time. So yeah, that's 17-0 out the gate. I think at that point we're all thinking, well, we're in for a wonderful evening here, but just not quite expecting what happened in the second quarter.
That's right, yeah. Tim, as Phil and Gareth said, it was record-setting. It was good play calling. Something like only the fifth time in NFL history that many rushing yards, that many passing yards. It sort of shades of Doug Martin when he sort of had his good couple of games, wasn't it?
It was a good all-round performance. You know, we highlighted it, and Phil highlighted how prepared we looked and how different we looked. I'll give credit to the whole team, the whole backroom staff for being ready, for going through the hurricanes of the last few weeks and getting that team prepared to come out of the gate. Second game in a row, we scored an opening day touchdown where we'd gone for millions of games without doing so. Phil made a very good point. I love the amount of motion that we are putting into the game. We've been very critical over the last few years. Kieron and I have done many of these where the first call is a run up the backside of the guard in front. And that became a staple joke between us. And it's great to see all this motion. Sterling Shepard needs to stay on his feet a little bit, but we'll give him that one. But it was good to see the variation, getting the Sterling Shepard involved, moving Sean Tucker out into the wide positions, catching balls. It was just a great all-round performance. And I will say one other I'll give credit to, Robert Hainsey in the offensive line. We didn't miss Graham Barton at all, really. And we looked better because Luke Gadecki was back. Kudos to those front five for making it all work.
Yeah, someone said on the forum, it's really great to see Gadecki wearing that Guardian helmet. I'm really pleased they're normalising that. Why would you not? You know, it's like driving without your seatbelt on. If it's there, you might as well use it. But Gareth, Tim mentioned Tucker, and I think that's the first thing we need to focus in on. It feels like we've got three running back ones now. How do you choose?
Well, I mean, Tim mentioned Doug Martin. I went back a little bit further. He reminds me of Ernest Graham. You know, they're both undrafted guys. Both had about 3,000 yards in college. Took a little bit of a while to get into the NFL. Both sort of tough runners, low to the ground finishers as well. They drive into the hole. So I'm hoping he has as good a career for the Bucs as Ernest Graham does. But yeah, we've now got three different weapons at running back, all doing slightly different things. Bucky Irving's just an incredibly exciting player. Rashad White catching the ball out of the backfield. It's a triple-headed monster. And
very good, but that was a
line
politician's answer. I know we're in the presidential election season. Who's running back one next week?
I think you go back to the experience of Rashad White. I know that's an unpopular opinion. but I think the credit for the rushing performance I would give to the offensive line. I'm wearing an offensive lineman's jersey. I used to play offensive line. I mean, they reminded me of the Washington team of the 80s with the counter play, and just driving the New Orleans Saints defensive line off the ball. The running backs were barely touched in the backfield all game. I think there was one game where Chase Young caught Sterling Shepard in the backfield on one of the wide receiver runs, but that other than that, the offensive line just dominated. I think Rashad White would have had a good game if he'd been fit as well.
It's a really good observation, because you're right. Some of those pulling guards and things, it was your heart was in your mouth because you thought, oh, the defender was just a hand swept away. But that's how it's designed. But Phil, I saw the gasp of intake. Who do you think should be running back one next week?
I think for me it's Bucky Irvin, right? I think he's so decisive in the backfield, and I don't see that from Rashad White. I mean, yes, he's brilliant catching the ball, but there's so many times where there are holes, but he doesn't fill them quick enough. So for me, I mean, Bucky and Sean, they really hit the holes hard and fast. Yes, it wasn't up the gut, which also played into our hands and everything, which is much better. But Rashad just seems a little bit lost sometimes. And I just think those guys showed so much energy. I think we would be mad, especially Rashad White coming off a hamstring injury. It's the perfect opportunity to get those guys involved and start them next week. I think one thing that I think someone mentioned is Hainsey, right? I mean, that for me was fantastic. I mean, for him to sort of like come in like that. And to me, he's probably played better than Barton has all season in that one start. And I think that's an even harder position, that if Barton's better next week, do you go back to the high draft pick, or do you stay with Hainsey, who's had a phenomenal game? I think that's a hard one.
It's hard, isn't it? In both cases, you can imagine the coach being slightly devil's advocate, going, "You take a bit longer. Don't worry, we don't want to rush you. You're too important to us." And in the meantime, giving the hot hand the ride. Tim, let's come on and talk about Baker for a little bit. I think his stat line was confusing to me because he was doing lots of good things, and I think it's those interceptions. Some people quickly dismissed them because they were deflections, but someone else was saying, but the ball was still deflected. He wasn't throwing in the lane.
Yeah, you've got arguments both ways. The first interception was a real poor throw. He hit the New Orleans guy right in the numbers. How he couldn't see him coming across, not sure. Deflections happen. It's happened to Brady. It's happened to every quarterback in the league. These things go on. You just have to take those. Yeah, was he thrown into a lane that wasn't it? Possibly. But why hasn't the offensive lineman kept that defensive lineman on the ground? There are so many people who can get involved in that play that can cause it to fail. So, yeah, was he at his best? Yeah. For 3 quarters, what happened in that second quarter, not just to him, but to that team, was really worrying up until halftime. And I came out at the end of halftime thinking, that's how Baker can really turn this back on. And he flicked the switch. It's as if that second quarter never happened to him. And that's a sign of a real top player, that you can put all that behind you and then come out and have that second half that he had. I thought he was exceptional yesterday.
I completely agree with you, Tim. There's one thing I think, with that second quarter, to me, everything felt just so rushed. It was madness going on everywhere.
Just didn't calm down. Someone just wants to go, look, just calm down.
Exactly. Yeah. Just reset. Almost take a time out, right? Or do something just to slow everything down.
Yeah.
Because again, it got to the point where everything was rushed. No one was set. We had pre-snap penalties, post-snap penalties all over the shop. And we really needed to kind of just step away.
Oh, I think it's frozen a little bit.
Yeah. What I was going to say, Kieron, while it comes back, was, I think we got ahead of ourselves. If that had been a different team, apart from the Saints or a division game, there might have been a bit more control. I think we got a bit excited. We put 17 points on them. And I think, yeah, we were going to go for the juggler in the first half. And it just
Gareth,
got.
do you think this could be the mythical halftime adjustments that we've always been craving?
Well, I think we really did do well, adjusting, particularly on the defense, actually. And I think one of the key points was actually the drive, the last Saints drive, I think it was just before the half, where they were leading 27-24. They had a short field after the third Baker interception, and they started the drive reasonably well. I think they got one first down, but then we completely shut them down. And I think that was the point where the defense changed the game plan a little bit to stop the rollout passes of Rattler. The edge guys were containing him much better. They seemed to be driving up the field more, getting a bit wider, and that kept him in the pocket. And excuse the pun, rattled him a bit, I think. And
it writes itself.
They kept that up for the second half as well. Throwing a few safety blitzes in there. But yeah, on just coming back to Baker, I think the third interception in particular was a complete freak point. It was deflected from the defender's arm onto his helmet, I think, and then it spiraled right up into the air. That wasn't on Baker, I don't think. The second interception, it felt like he threw it a little bit low. And obviously, the first one was a poor throw on his part, but I think a brief spell where he looked a little bit jittery, but then came back really strongly in the second half, and obviously the running game really kicked in as well.
Brilliant. You started talking about the defense, so let's switch to that side. Although I think we all know we want to shoot Sterling Shepherd first of all. Yeah. Phil, do you agree on that defensive summary?
Yes and no. I thought we were a little bit too conservative with a guy coming out of sort of fifth round draft pick, first NFL start. I would have probably pressured him a little bit earlier because exactly what you said, Gareth. It was that last drive, that first half. That's the first time we showed pressure, really, and that's when we again rattled him. Which we showed him. We didn't really show him enough kind of defensive packages in the first half, which it all came out to play in the second half, and that was great. And he was nowhere in that second half, so we put him under so much pressure. So I think great play called in second half, the last drive of the first half, but I just think we were a little bit too conservative. Maybe he wanted to show him out and say, what's Rattler got? I don't know. So maybe that's why he started off a little bit slow. But amping it up massively worked, and that's what shut them out in the second half.
Yeah, I think the adjustments were right, but I think the Saints actually did well to start with him, just rolling him away from pressure early on, giving him space to try and look down the field. Once the Bucs took that away, then you took away any real chance the lad had of making any plays. So those adjustments were good.
I think it was interesting. I was a bit of a geek earlier and looked back at Rattler's highlights film from college and also from pre-season, and they didn't really use. He wasn't known for the rollout passes. That was something that the Saints clearly threw into the game, and I think it took a while for the Bucs defense to get used to that and come up with the game plan to stop it, which they clearly successfully did.
I think it's a good point. I think they knew that once Yaya and JTS collapsed the pocket, that actually the rollout was probably the most viable option. To me, it looked like they'd scripted the first, 15 plays.
Yeah.
And they designed, he didn't have to make any options, any reads. You were going to roll out, you're going to look over the middle, and all being well, we reckon that would be open, otherwise throw it away. And you say that worked really well, but when the script ran out, I think the wheels fell off a little bit. Phil, I want to talk about our secondary. So far this year, we've been bashing our secondary. How big is it when Antoine Winfield Jr. comes back in the lineup?
Oh, he's massive for the team, isn't he? I mean, he just shows up from the very first moment. But I think for me, the player in the secondary was Tyke Smith. I mean, he was all over the field. He was phenomenal. He had obviously that kind of false fumble, which then Antoine took in for the 6. And then he had the interception as well, a couple of passes defensed, I think. And he was just everywhere. He was phenomenal. To me, the big upgrade this season as well over what I was expecting was Zion McCullum, who again, I think has been excellent. I never expected it, but his step up again has been brilliant. Again, another fantastic interception. And again, he really kind of, apart from maybe one, he really pressed the guy hard. So that was really good. Secondary was great. It's so much better with Antoine in there. He sets the whole scene.
Yeah, I would agree literally with everything Phil said. Tyke Smith was superb.
Yeah.
One of the better performances you'll ever see from a rookie defensive back. Wasn't out of position, and he hasn't been much all this year. I'll give him that. He was absolutely superb. But yeah, Winfield comes on, sets the tone.
But funny is it, Tim? Earlier in the year, we were saying we're a bit thin. Oh well, my camera's gone. We keep going. We're a bit thin at defensive back. But now you look down, Jamal Dean. Okay, hopefully he's healthy. Zion McCullum, Winfield, Whitehead, Izzy, and Tyke Smith, and even Thunderbird came on and had a couple of good plays. And suddenly we've got 7 good defensive backs.
Yeah, I would actually. It's an odd one because we gave the guy the money. The weaker link amongst most of those is Jamal Dean at this moment.
Yeah.
And his hamstring was, what a poor tackling technique. That was all down to he cannot tackle properly.
Mm-hmm.
But, hopefully his hamstring won't be too bad. But, yeah, the young defensive backs, absolutely superb all game. And Phil mentioned Zion McCollum. Yeah, great athlete. Can they turn him into something? Well, somebody's turned him into something. Whoever's coaching that defensive backfield has got a gem out of him at this moment.
I guess
the other thing
I
was just going to say, Tim, the other thing that obviously helped as well, the whole defensive back situation, was finally getting pressure. Right?
Yeah,
I think Cansey coming back. Yeah, I mean, that's so much difference. The pass rush looked a lot better than what it has done all season with just him in the side.
Yeah, we were rushing 5 and we were getting to the quarterback, and that's the first time this year that's really happened.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, Gareth,
a little bit realistic as well. In that Olave going out did help the secondary a lot, but accepting that, they did a great job in shutting down, with the exception of one big play, which I'm sure we're going to come on to, shutting down Shaheed. He had a couple of catches, I think, but he's been one of their major threats, deep threats, and that was pretty much taken away for the whole game. It felt like, yeah.
Well, you've started it. Carry on. I mean, talk about it. The big play.
Well, I know there's been a lot of criticism of Kamada, but I think on that particular play, it was the coverage unit which was at fault. I think it was, I'm trying to think who it was, Zach Triner, Nelson, and I think O'Keefe were the closest guys to Shaheed when he caught the ball. But they didn't get anywhere near him. And yes, Kamada was punting the ball further a year or two ago, but I think that was a 47-yard punt. That's not too bad. I don't know.
And it had some high on it because they were there, like you say.
Yeah. But when the coverage team doesn't get within 2 or 3 yards of the returner for pretty much the entire of the return, I'm not sure you can blame the punter entirely for that. So yes, Kamada could improve, but on that particular play, I would put that at the feet of the coverage team.
So you're in the hot seat tonight, Gareth. Is Kamada still on the roster next week?
Well, as I've upset everybody by saying that Rashid White should be the starting running back, I'll upset everybody again by saying, yeah, I would stick with Kamada. I think you've got to stick with people through the rough patch. I think he's been our best ever punter, arguably, for 2 or 3 seasons. Yes, he's having a bit of a rough patch. Maybe it's a confidence issue. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of underlying injury that we don't know about. But I still think he can come good.
No, I think that's the popular opinion this time. I agree with you. And Phil, I mean, special teams generally, it felt like it wasn't a bad outing on the whole.
No, it felt pretty good. I think the guys just slipped my mind in terms of our kicker, who just seems
Chase.
He's almost automatic, right? Which is something we've not seen for a long time, and that just gives a lot of confidence. And again, I thought definitely the gunners were a little bit better, apart from that one occasion. I thought Tavia Thomas had quite a good outing on special teams. Seemed to be there at the right time and make that first tackle. So overall, I think it was a pretty good. I would say B+ performance.
Okay, and then Tim, in terms of focuses for the week ahead, we'll come and talk about the Ravens in the next episode. But just right now, what after in the locker room afterwards, what are the things we need to fix or focus on?
Nothing particularly, apart from getting ahead of ourselves. We are a good team. We are one of the better teams in this league. We're not quite up there yet, but we are one of the better teams. I will criticise the Bucs for one thing, if that's okay, and that was going for the 2-point conversion. Yeah. If we kicked the extra point, we would have got 11 points up, still 2 scores, 2 touchdowns ahead. There was no benefit that I can work out of why we went for 2, and the attempt was abysmal, absolutely abysmal. But I just couldn't work out that call, and I would love somebody to tell me what the benefit of that was. And if anybody on this call knows it,
I was well up for going for it. I think the difference between 10 points and 12 points was it was 2 touchdowns. It wasn't. That was the get, and I thought we thought we were in having a good rub of it. We wanted to try and build the momentum. It was kind of putting your foot on the throat a little bit harder. But I agree with you. The play selection was abysmal. There was too much dancing horizontally in the backfield all day for my liking.
Yeah. You just got to at some point up the jumper and hit somebody with it.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. That was my only criticism of the day.
I've got one other criticism. We've been really good this season on penalties. Yesterday, I think we had 11 accepted penalties on both sides of the ball. So I just think we need to be careful and make sure that doesn't become a habit.
Yeah.
I think some of that was that second quarter fog, but the penalties were consistent throughout the game. Nothing.
Yeah.
So Gareth, your one primer for the week.
Well, if we're doing criticism corner, I think I've got a couple, and those are. One of them is, please Godwin, don't lateral the ball to Tristan Wirfs at the end of the first half. I think I had a panic attack that was going to be fumbled and the Saints were going to run it back for a touchdown. And similarly, when McCollum did get his interception, I think it was ruled that he was down by contact in the end. But again, I always get nervous when defensive backs are running in the middle of a whole group of players that they're going to fumble it. So just get down. If you're not going to get a touchdown, just get down and take the yards that you've got rather than risk the fumble. So yeah, those
okay. Well, so that's
Kieron,
how you're gone.
Kieron, can I make one other special mention? But
of course,
it seems amazing that we haven't mentioned this guy, but Chris Godwin, right? 11 receptions, 125 yards. I think over 100 of those were yak as well. I mean, that's a phenomenal performance.
I think we just come to expect it.
Yeah, he's back to his previous form.
Yeah, he is.
Even the dog agrees. There you go. But do you agree? You give us your comments in the chat below, and remember, if you're listening on Spotify now, you can also comment in the chat as well. We will be back later in the week to preview the Ravens game. Gareth, this is your first time now, so get ready for the chant, because from Phil, Tim, Gareth and myself, we will see you later in the week. And until then, go Bucs.
Go Bucs.
Go Bucs.